Welcome back. It's Adam Spagnolo here, candidate for the City of Stirling's Osborne ward. The election, of course, is coming up in October. October 21st is the last day that you'll be able to vote. But prior to that, some 3 weeks before, you'll actually receive postal voting papers, and all of the instructions in terms of how to vote will be provided with the postal voting kit. I'm delighted today to have with me in the studio Teresa Ritchie. Teresa is a candidate for the Central Ward in the City of Joondalup's council election, also coming up in October. Are you postal voting or?
We are.
Ah, okay, because previously it was in person, I think, wasn't it?
Postal votes. We get the postal votes in the mail and we tick our respective candidate that we would like to be on the council.
Yes, great.
And we send it away.
Very, very good. Teresa, last time I was in the studio here, I had a chat with Jack Garber. Jack, incidentally, is also a candidate in the Hammersley ward of the City of Stirling. Now, Jack and I discussed question time. He's a regular goer, if you like, to the council meetings, and he asks a lot of very curly questions and a lot of very legitimate questions, things that people want to know. People actually even contact Jack as an advocate to say, hey, Jack, look, can you ask this question on behalf of the community because we're concerned about this? And I think Jack does a fantastic job in doing so. Now, just so that the listeners and the viewers are aware of what question time is, I'd like to give you just a very brief explanation. Question time is an opportunity, if you like, when the council meeting is opened. The first thing that usually happens, certainly at Stirling, I'm not sure whether it's that way at Joondalup, but you can tell us in a moment. There are 15 minutes in which ratepayers can actually ask a question on any item on the agenda, or certainly any matter relating to that particular council. And as I've mentioned, that goes on for 15 minutes, and usually an answer is given there and then. If it's a difficult question, well then of course what happens is the question is taken on notice, and in due course a reply is given. Or indeed, it may be at the next council meeting that the reply is actually presented to the public. Now, at question time, I guess people have the opportunity to ask the question. They hope to get the answer. Sometimes if the question is not a suitable question, well, the presiding officer, in this case and in your case the mayor, will actually rule the question out of order, if indeed it is out of order. It's been my understanding that sometimes they're just not out of order, but certainly ruled out of order. Can you explain to us, please, Teresa, how it works with the City of Joondalup? You do have a question time there, I presume, for 15 minutes, is that correct?
We do, and the members of the public have the opportunity to register and ask 2 questions. Two?
Per person?
2 per person.
Well,
so I have
Yep,
in the past and in recent times come to my local government and asked 2 questions of the council. And in those 2 questions, one question was answered immediately and the other was taken on notice because it required
some technical advice.
Technical advice and further explanation.
Yes.
And that's the same process as similar to Stirling. Members of the public come along, they register, they ask 2 questions. Some of the questions are tricky, but I think they're tricky because the community wants to know what is going on, and they maybe feel sometimes that they're not getting the adequate responses, maybe from their local councillors or their administration or even the mayor. So they come to the council to ask the tricky questions. Sometimes those questions can challenge the people that are in the council and have to make the decisions, and thereby can be ruled out of order. But I think every ratepayer has and should have the opportunity to ask questions of their council.
Look, at Stirling in recent times, we've had a couple of comments being made by people that are a little aggrieved by the fact that they've gone to the council, they've asked a question, they've actually been ruled out of order, and they've kind of scratched their head and thought, well, why was that out of order? Now, the mayor respectfully has actually replied to people and said, hang on a minute, look, you've got to understand we've got a big agenda, which is understood. You've also got to understand that there may be other people there that might want to ask a question, and that is understood as well. But I think the thing that gets me the most is that people have been reporting to me that what's been happening is halfway through the question, in some cases, the microphone's turned off because either the question is not liked or it's not relevant to the council. Well, instead of being, if I may use the word respectfully, rude, why not just simply say to the person, excuse me, we can't answer that question because it's not relevant to our business. But look, we can direct you to the Water Corporation, or we can direct you to JDAP, or we can actually direct you to the West Australian Planning Commission. I think that that's the way you treat the ratepayer. You don't just switch him off. That's absolutely ridiculous.
No, you shouldn't switch the ratepayers off, because sometimes the ratepayer don't actually know where to go to get their answer.
Yep.
So they come to council and ask the question, and even though their question may not be answered that evening, they want some kind of guidance or direction. And rather than switching a microphone off, for example, it is better to say, look,
Courtesy.
we don't have your answer tonight, but
Yes.
how about you leave your telephone number or your email address, or you email the relevant director in the administration who may be able to assist you.
Yes.
And I think that's a better way of dealing with the ratepayers, because then you do walk away upset and aggrieved by what's been said to you in your local community and in your local council, and people do get quite upset by not having their responses addressed.
Would you say that Mayor Pickard has been a good presiding officer when it comes to question time? And, my knowledge of Mayor Pickard, because we used to serve together actually as councillors at the City of Stirling, I've always known him to be a fair and reasonable person. I mean, is that the way he conducts question time?
He's always been and come across fair and reasonable in the community. There have been some occasions whereby members will ask questions where he'll say, "I'll take that on notice," and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
And I guess it's the interaction with the community as well that he has. He's able to be able to address people in that manner. He has been a long-standing mayor for some time. So for him, I think he's down-packed the processes of council, and he's got everything, down to a T. Question time, statement time, conducting meetings.
Yeah.
He's had them down-packed.
Yeah.
But he does often say, "I'll take that question on notice and we'll provide you with a response."
Look, let's face it, sometimes you do get difficult ratepayers. I mean, there's no question at all about that. And I think the art is being able to handle that person and being aggressive with that person, throwing that person out, or just basically showing some anger towards that person is not the way to do business. In my view, you've just got to take your time with it. You listen to what the person has to say, because half the time, once the person gets it off their chest, even though it may be a whole load of rubbish, I think you'll find that they feel as though they've done their thing, they've got it off their chest, they've unloaded on the City of Stirling. The City of Stirling probably can't do anything for them because it may not have been relevant, but at least they've had a forum in which to let this thing that's been bugging them, their family and their immediate community.
That's right, and that's all they want, just the opportunity to be able to come to council and ask their question, get their issue off their chest, and just let someone hear them or listen to what they're saying.
Yes.
That's basically it. And if you cut them off because you feel it's an aggressive statement or question, then it's probably the wrong way to deal with your community, because they are the ones that will vote at the end of the day, and you need to be mindful of that. And the City of Joondalup, the Mayor has always been, we'll take that question on notice and we'll provide you with a response.
And you do, don't you? You do get the response.
I've gotten the response to my questions that I've asked, and all community members get their responses, but at least you know, as a member of the community, that at some point you will get the answer to your question. And you don't necessarily feel aggrieved by that, but you know that your question will be addressed. Yeah. And the process is
I think the other thing that presiding officers, mayors and presidents need to come to terms with is that the average ratepayer and the average resident out there, who may be quite informed, may not necessarily be aware of the council processes, may not necessarily be aware of the jurisdictions of certain items or activities. And they turn to their council because that's their first port of call. And, to be received in that way or rejected in that way, in my view, is not the way to do business. Anything else to add on question time?
I agree with your comments, Adam. It's true. It's not the way to do business. It's just good to help your ratepayers if you can.
It's called diplomacy, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for your comments there, Teresa. Teresa Ritchie, candidate for the Central Ward in the City of Joondalup in the elections coming up in October. We'll be speaking to Teresa on a couple of other issues very, very shortly, and we'll be back very, very shortly. Thank you for watching.